sign first. So I'm going to hand you this prayer book for a moment, which signifies that for the moment you own the document, but you won't own it for very long. I'll take that back from you, and you will sign where it says groom, which is... Yep. And then I will ask that you now hand this to your bride. You will now own the ketubah in perpetuity. And you will now sign my maiden name. Last time. Excellent. And our witnesses?
Who are we going to have?
Eugene.
Let's have Eugene. And Rita.
I wish I said after this.
Good point. No, right?
Ему страшно просто.
Ты знаешь, я на твоей стороне всегда.
Да на моей стороне.
И на твоей тоже.
You guys are on the same side. You both talk down.
These guys on my side.
Beautiful. The power vested in me by the den of the city of New York that ordained me, I declare this marriage to be valid, binding, tough. You're married now.
Lock doors.
All right. So the only thing now we need, that I always say that makes God happy. Now we have to make the governor happy. So do you have witnesses that you'd like to do the civil license? It could be anybody over the age of 18.
We can do somebody else now?
Somebody else.
Great, let's do Mariah and Eddie.
Get your sister involved.
She's over 18.
Clearly.
Okay, you're going to sign right there.
Там 4 сидят,
Обморок,
да?
мама, пах.
Там 4 people сидят, да? 5 people?
Машка,
Right there.
Да, our guest.
сюда. Этот Майкл пришел, врач.
Да.
Half of your bridal, half of your party is like here.
Sign right there. That makes Mr. Corey.
А сколько человек нужно подписывать свидетелей?
Сейчас два.
Очень perfect. Thank you.
Ну что, Mrs. Box family?
Okay. Same
Передали
sign.
Мне?
How did that feel?
На когда?
Sign your friend. I'm like...
Sign.
Какое мое имя?
Jacob, what's my mom? Dina.
Дина?
Nina, Dina.
Jacob's sister. Jacob's daughter, actually. Okay. All the legalities are done.
Девчонки,
Two to go.
девчонки, Рит тоже, что?
Flowers over in there. Flowers over front.
I will ask them.
You know,
Blesses on him, blesses.
поздравляю вас. Yes, congratulations. Now
I'm sorry.
Stop.
Sure,
Еще
one more time.
подожди.
Sure, one more time.
Lonnie, you guys ready?
Whenever they're ready.
Yeah, we're ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have you line.
Someday
gave that look like I'll never see you again. And you may all be seated, please. Well, we welcome all of you. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we are taught that there is a time to rend and a time to mend. There is a time to be sad and there is a time to be happy. So when we are sad in our tradition, we tear our garments to show that someone we love has been torn away from us. But that passage in Ecclesiastes reminds us always that there is a time that we will be happy again. And so the Hebrew is a little more specific, not so much to sew up the garments, but to make new garments. And if tearing, if kiryat is the ultimate act of sadness in our tradition, then kiddushin, a wedding, is the ultimate act of happiness in our tradition. And so the rabbis interpret that passage even more specifically, that the new garments we are to make are to be wedding garments. This is such a holy and sacred affair that we don't even call this a wedding in Hebrew. As I said, we call this kiddushin. It's holy and sacred, you're coming together. The reasons that we call this a sacred occasion is what the two of you are really doing here tonight, is chasing away sin. The very first words that the Torah ever mentions about a wedding is really a pronouncement of that sin. Midrash tells us that at the end of the sixth night in the Garden of Eden, as the sun is going down, God notices that Adam has begun to cry. God asks Adam why, and Adam replies, "Dear God, I performed the task that you gave me today. I matched the animals with their mates, I gave them their names, and then I looked around and I didn't find a mate for myself." And so God realized that he had forgotten to make a mate for Adam. And so God pronounced that sin by saying that it is not good for the man to be alone. So I will make him a helper corresponding to him. God cast a deep sleep on the man, and the man slept. God took flesh from his side and filled that flesh in its place, and with that flesh he fashioned the woman. And then God brought the woman to the man. The man said, "This time, she is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She is to be called Isha. She is to be called woman, for from Ish, the man was she taken. And therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife." And that's the operative word, cling to his wife, and together they shall become one flesh. Barachim chabayim b'shem Adonai. Blessed are you who have come here in the name of God. Ruch lechem mi beit Adonai. We bless you from this house of God. Yivdu et Adonai, the simcha b'yu lefanai v'rananai. Serve Adonai with joy, come into God's presence with song. We rejoice that Jacob and Svetlana join in marriage in the presence of God and all you who love you. Yadir al kol mi baruch al hakol migadol al hakol. Yivarech hechatan v'chakalah. And the most awesome, glorious, and blessed God grants your blessings to his bride and grave. You're surrounded by those who love you, whose joy and prayers are with you here. You stand under this chuppah, symbol of the home that you will make together. May your home always be a shelter against the storms of life that surely bring you, but also be a haven of peace and a stronghold of faith and of love. In your coming together, God's most important work of creation goes on. God joining man and woman, God planting the divine likeness within each of you. Man and woman were created in the divine image, male and female did God create. And may your coming together animate the divine in each of you, and may each help the other to grow in God's likeness. We sanctify your coming together with a sip of wine, which is symbolic of the gifts that God gives to us. God has provided the grapes, and we've just let that sit, and it magically ferments and turns into wine. Just as we believe the two of you are gifts to each other, God is the one who gave you to each other. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pori hagofen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvosav v'hitir lanu et hansuim v'hansuot lanu yedei chuppah v'kiddushin. Baruch atah Adonai mikedeshanu Yisrael al yedei chuppah v'kiddushin. Praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who's given us the fruit of the vine. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot and consecrates your marriage. We praise you, Adonai, our God, who sanctifies our people Israel through Kiddushin, the sacred rite of marriage under the chuppah. Amen. Amen. ask you both to take a nice, healthy sip. Now I ask you both in the presence of God and all here who love you, do you, Jacob, take Svetlana to be your wife, to love, to honor, and cherish throughout life? If so, answer yes.
Yes.
And you, Svetlana, take Jacob to be your husband, to love, to honor, and cherish throughout life? If so, answer yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. I always worry a little bit. We're over the hardest part. Well, you've now publicly stated your declarations to each other. You've signed your ketubah. We seal all of that now by the exchanging of rings. In a traditional Jewish ceremony, this is the legal part of the ceremony, and it could be anything that is exchanged. In ancient times, it was coins. It really could have been anything that the two of you had decided was of value. So you could have decided today to exchange sheep. You could have decided to exchange goats. It could have been blankets. It could have been anything that you said was of value. And the reason is to make a point to the public that we believe that marriage is value. It has something to it. You can quantify it. So we use in kind of a modern term, I would say, what you're doing today by exchanging these rings in a moment is kind of establishing a baseline. This is what you say your marriage is worth as of today. Your job then, for the remainder of your lives together, is to grow the value of that marriage. So as the years go on, we hope the rings will get a little bit bigger. Maybe you'll add a few stones to them from time to time. Houses will get bigger, your cars will get bigger, and God willing, your family will get bigger as well. So that you two, at the end of your life together, can be like God. We know that at the end of the creation, it says that God rested on the seventh day, Vayinafash. Well, the rabbis in the Talmud say God didn't get tired. He's infinite. Infinity doesn't end. So what they think that really means is not so much that he rested on the seventh day, but at the end of his creation, he looked out into the universe and probably said something like, wow, look what I did. I made a universe, and I gave it a soul. I put man in the garden. We hope that's what you'll be able to do at some point, is at the end of your life, kind of look out and say, look what we did. We added to the value of creation by bringing all our family and all this together so that you can, in the end, be like God. We also use rings because, like coins, they're round. They have no beginning, they have no ending. So it shows that we believe that marriage has no beginning and no ending. Our Kabbalah teaches us that you two were matched at the moment that God created the universe. And there's an old Yiddish belief that on the day you were born, Jacob, the angels in heaven